Welcome to the Livecast Conversations with. On this show, my guests and I explore the bumps and triumphs of their journey to extract the gems from their experiences, because success leaves clues, and today we turn those clues into billboards for you. I'm your host, Gene Bernier, founder of Peeled Back, speaker and co-active coach, guiding leaders to ruthlessly pursue a life worth living. Well, you'd think that I'm new to this again here. All right, everybody, welcome to episode 103 of the Conversations with. Today, my guest is Josh Stilborn. Josh is the founder of the Recovery Spa. After a motorcycle accident, Josh discovered alternative therapies, including cryotherapy and advanced technology, what led him to create the Recovery Spa. Despite COVID's challenges, it offers cutting-edge therapies such as NovoTHOR beds and Sunlighten sauna to help anyone find relief from pain and to speed up the healing journey. Join us as we learn about Josh's inspiring journey and his dedication to improving lives through innovative healing solutions. Josh, my words cannot do you justice, sir. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
I'm happy to be here, and I really appreciate the invite. Looking forward to it, as I always do. Even if it's so much as a coffee with you, Gene, it's always a good chat. So,
likewise. So, well, let's jump into it. So, you're the founder of the Recovery Spa, but that sounds like there was a bit of a journey to get to that point. Tell us what that journey was about, learning about healing, and what drew you to setting up a bricks and mortar in-person place and growing it over these last 3 years and still being successful.
Yeah, I think the key motivating factor was my experience with injury and pain through, as you mentioned before, a motorcycle accident back in 2015. Left my bike in ruins and left me with a massive concussion and dislocated shoulder and a few bumps and bruises and some torn ligaments. At the time, I was basically given two options: take the drugs or live with the pain. And I didn't really like either of those options. So I decided I would see what other options were out there, because I truly believe that this couldn't be all that was available. So yeah, I kind of went down a rabbit hole for a few years, testing things, trying stuff. I never at any given point prior to that would have thought I would find myself digging through scientific research papers for fun. And that's kind of what got us to the current state of the Recovery Spa is, spending hours and hours just learning how to decipher and reading through the research that was out there being done by some, spectacular minds that the human race has to offer, and kind of piecing together the best of the best for pain management and performance and that kind of thing. So,
right. So the one piece there that kind of jumped out is you found a way to make this fun, like this healing journey for yourself, this experimenting, getting into the research about how each of these different technologies and therapeutic methods worked. And you found some fun in it, which now you've turned into a business and that is serving others. Was there a moment where you're like, oh my Lord, this is fun? Or was it just like, it just kept kind of fueling you?
I think there was just, even from early on, there was this kind of innate fascination with what I was discovering. And, there was a couple of points during that process at the beginning where I thought, did I totally miss my calling when I was younger? Like should I have, gone into the sciences and gotten into, a different field? And it's taken a couple of years for me to realize that had I done that, I don't think I would have come to a lot of the conclusions that I have over the last few years. So did I miss my calling? I think it hit me at the right time in life.
Mm.
It came in the form of a pickup truck while I was on my
Some
motorcycle.
messages hit a little harder than others.
Yeah, yeah. So it definitely struck me pretty hard, but I I think, like I said, had I come to that conclusion that this was an area that I was extremely interested in when I was younger, it would have been um, yeah, a whole different story that we'd be talking about for sure.
Right. So, and finding that story by hearing you can either live with the pain or take the drugs. Both of those options were a no thank you to you. So it drove you to looking into other therapies. Where did you start with that?
So I had had some experience with cryotherapy, specifically liquid nitrogen cryotherapy chambers. There was a couple of businesses here in Kelowna at the time that had we gave us access to that kind of stuff, and then and then around the same time, Health Canada found that the liquid nitrogen chambers were extremely dangerous, and so essentially pulled them from the market. So I had found some relief in that type of therapy early on. And when the local unit here broke down and they couldn't get parts because Health Canada had pulled these devices from the market, we I started looking elsewhere. I started looking to larger markets like Vancouver and Calgary because we've got family out there. And I thought, you know what, it's working. I'll just go and visit family and utilize devices in either of those cities when I can. And then, so I started really digging into, okay, why is cryotherapy benefiting me? What is it doing that is giving me, you know, at least, you know, short term benefits? And so I started digging into that research. And at the time, a friend of mine who is a research physician, um, he helped me gain access to a lot of databases that I wouldn't have otherwise had access to, and provided me with a significant amount of research data into the cryotherapy space. And you know, there was mixed findings. So I thought to myself, okay, so it's working for me, but it may not work for everybody. What else is out there that you don't have to freeze yourself to negative 180 degrees Celsius for 3 minutes, you know, 2 or 3 times a week? Because Lynn's used to look at me. She'd be like, "Oh, you're going to that cryo thing again," and just look at me like I was out of my mind, right? Because nobody likes getting cold to a certain extent, and standing at that temperature for 3 minutes doesn't seem like a fun situation. But that discomfort was more invigorating than sitting around in pain all the time.
Mm.
And then the relief that I would get for 2 or 3 days was so significant that I almost felt like I could get back to life. So that was really
That's
the
a,
start of digging into all the research. And then at the same time, we decided to learn a little bit more about ourselves and get into a little bit of personal growth, and attended a couple of Tony Robbins events down in the States. And through that, I got introduced to NuCalm, which is this spectacular device that literally balances our autonomic nervous system. So it allows you to basically remove stress from your body um, at the flick of a button, so to speak.
that's very cool.
And I found that combined with the cryo was starting to work really well. And I was in finance, and so fairly high stress job. And yeah, it kind of snowballed into this weird rabbit hole. And as I kept going down it, I would read research, and some of it was on very effective modalities. Others was it was like, okay, yeah, that was pretty well found to be a waste of everybody's time fairly quickly after reading a couple of papers. So it was fairly easy to dig through the data and kind of compile two piles of therapies that I wanted to get involved in. And it was, these are the ones that are working. These are the ones that we can just, put aside and kind of
Scrap, yeah.
ignore as being um, anecdotal at best, I guess you could say.
Right. So through all that is like there's like an underlying theme here. It's like as you were learning more about this, experiencing it, getting the relief, it's like I hear hope increasing every step of the way. Here it's like, oh, there's a hope for me to get back to life. There's a hope for me to have a full life. Oh, what could this hope then be for others? Well, what's the science? So we do the right things for the right people in the right place. So that's sounds like that's where the seeds start to get planted as you were coming back to life from the accident. Is like, what else could we do with this?
Yeah, and initially the whole spa idea it started off as, hey, let's because running this same time frame, I decided I was going to take up long distance or triathlon, and so that in its own right is extremely demanding from a physical standpoint, and I had found this device called Normatec, which is a compression therapy that helps with all kinds of things. But initially, the spa idea was to get a couple of these Normatec units, and on weekends, I would go out to triathlon races or half marathons or local run races and just set up a tent with a couple of chairs and let people try this Normatec stuff out and see what kind of interest we would get. And so that was kind of the first iteration of it. And it changed drastically when one of the partners that I was working with in finance expressed some interest in expanding his business, and you know, um, I thought, well, maybe I could use that for a little bit of seed money, and that whole thing just came to terms really quickly. And a lot faster than I had anticipated. So instead of having these, 3 or 4 Normatec systems that we were going to drive around with, I ended up getting out of finance completely. And in 2019, I had already booked one finish line recovery for the Kelowna, it's called the Wine Country Half Marathon, and we were going to be there with the Normatec systems. I didn't even have a commercial space. Like, I was still looking for real estate at the time, had no idea where we were going to land or what the space was going to look like. I knew what was going into it at that point, but here we are at the finish line of this half marathon, getting people into Normatec boots and trying to field questions of where are you and when how can I access stuff, and my only answer was, as soon as I know, you'll know. Kind of scenario. So it
So
was,
it's interesting. It's at the end of that finish line was the beginning of your next marathon.
mm, yeah, that's a great way to put it, because that was the first in-person event that we did. And we literally got keys to the commercial space in August that same year. And then we started building, and it took us about 2 or 3 months to build the space out. We opened our doors October 30th of 2019, and then we promptly closed them on March 12th of 2020.
Hmm.
And that was probably the darkest 3 months of my life. Even thinking about it, um, just is,
Good stew.
oh yeah, yeah. Like, I had no idea. Um, Sorry, I didn't realize how emotional that time of or that period was until it it came up. Um, but yeah, there was times during that period where I would drive down to the closed spa and just stare in absolute amazement at um, the unknown and just wonder what the hell was going to happen, and ask myself, what have I done? Because this is going to die before it even gets started. Excuse me for a second.
Yeah, for sure, Josh.
And so, oh yeah, that was a rough couple of months, man.
Yeah.
Um, we we kind of filled that gap a little bit with trying to build community. So I think outwardly, a lot of people saw me and Lynn's trying to organize events. We did a whole like 3 day health and wellness seminar where we partnered up with, oh, I think it was almost a dozen different practitioners from here in Kelowna. And we put on this whole thing, and we had people sign up, and we got everybody virtual, and we did the big Zoom meetings, and we talked about everything from exercise and stress relief and breathing to, um, you know, oh, who else did we have on there? Yeah, it kind of escapes me right now, but that was kind of the external, view that I think a lot of people saw. And meanwhile, I'm down in the at the spa a couple of times a week, just completely beside myself with the unknown. And fast forward 3 years, and here we are. Last year we managed to get involved with the Okanagan Sun football. We've managed to partner with a couple of really great local businesses on a couple of other endeavors, and we've just seen the community support from the people that we've been able to help during the pandemic. When obviously after we were able to open up, and just the real impact that we've made on people's lives. At that time, I had no idea what we would be capable of. And watching people walk in our door in significant amounts of pain and go back to work after being off work for, sometimes 18 months and having no hope and no end game in sight, and then be able to go back to work, after seeing us for 6, 8,
Yeah.
10 weeks, is just mind blowing, to be honest with you.
Feels
I
like that's
knew.
more than just mind blowing. It's like there's a big heart component to that, and it talks back to the noticing of the increasing of hope. Is like you were deploying that hope across all these places after being in a place that felt and experienced complete and total hopelessness, pain at high, hope at the lowest it could go. To be able to get through that space, what do you see? What do you see about resilience and creativity after you've gone through that incredibly difficult time? And how did those two now play towards decreasing pain and increasing hope in your life?
Yeah, resilience. I think it comes down to grit. Um, and I think that, that might be a little bit of a um, great concept. Um, but
Dive into it a little bit. What's Josh's definition of grit in his
it,
life?
I think it really means just focusing on what can be and a belief. And and don't get me wrong, belief isn't always going to be there with you. You can have a belief that you honestly hold in your core that something is going to be successful and that what you're doing is right. Um, and then you're going to run into situations where that belief is going to be challenged, and it's not always from an outside person or thing that is going to challenge it. A lot of the time it's going to be that conscious mind that kind of rears its ugly head and goes, hey, you know, who are you to do this? Or, that imposter syndrome that I think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of successful people, regardless of what it appears from an outside view, every single one of us has gone through that or had that conversation internally. And, it comes down to being able to circle back around and find that belief again.
Right.
That is really in your core. However long you've lost it for, there will be a situation where you have an interaction with somebody else, or a song, or whatever the trigger might be, but that belief will come back. And it's being able to, I think, have this underlying, or this understanding that it's always there, regardless of what the world or the environment is happening in the world or the environment. Yeah.
I think that's so important, is like to acknowledge that we all go through that saboteurs and imposter syndrome, where that question is like, who are you? And then it's like the flip side of that being attached to on the other side of belief is like, who am I not to?
Right. And being able to kind of flip the framing of it. And I've learned a lot about the use of language over the last few years, and how much power it has over our state of being.
Yes.
And it's so much as just asking yourself a different question. Instead of, and I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, but I came to the conversation with the question of, how do I not fuck this up again? And the reframe was, what do I really want out of this situation? Right. So instead of, asking myself, how do I not fuck it up? It's, what do I really want? Yeah. And as soon as that frame got switched, I was able to come to very clear terms of what the outcome was in regards to this particular challenge that I was trying to get through. And with those clear terms, you can move forward so much quicker than just trying to figure out how not to fuck it up again.
Well, I love that you went there with that, because the experience that I've seen with clients and even within myself is like, our I don't think our minds hear the not. They hear, how am I going to fuck this up? Right? It's like exactly they've got this magical tool of just like stripping out the not, right? Going, oh, well, you're looking for ways to fuck this up? We got it. This thing's a creative beast. And it's just like, that's the question? Yeah, we got answers, tons of them. Be like, I don't want those answers. Then ask a different question, man. Like, my job's just to come up with answers for you. You're the one asking the questions. So when you flip it around going, what do I want out of it? Well, and all of a sudden your mind's going, well, what do I want out of it?
I got those answers for you too.
I got those answers too. They were on the other shelf. You just had to ask the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think grit is really defined by, finding the belief that is so ingrained in your core that you feel an emotional tug every time you experience something that is aligned with what that belief is. And it's not necessarily something that you'd be cognizant of when it happens, but it's something that I've learned to listen to. And that, I think, has really kind of driven me to the point of where we're at with the business, and where we're going to go with the growth of it, is really being in tune with that physical and emotional response to the situation, regardless of what it is, good or bad. And being able to be aware enough to reframe and ask better questions, because that's really what it comes down to. You ask shitty questions, you're going to get shitty answers, and yeah, it's not something that's taught. Like, we don't learn this shit in school. Like, nobody came to me in high school and was like, you know what, this is going to be a skill you're going to need for your entire life, and it will quite literally change the trajectory of your life if
Yeah.
all you do is learn how to talk to yourself, use the right language, and ask better questions.
Better questions. Oh, dude, yes. Rewind that and listen to that again. It is it is 100% on point. Is the way that we speak to ourselves is the power. And I think it's like, maybe I've heard it from Tony Robbins, but I know this has been around for me. He probably credits it to Jim Rohn. Is like, you're right. It's like, good questions in, good answers out. Shit questions in, shit questions or answers out.
Yeah.
And that place of going, acknowledging that maybe that's not the skill that we're taught in school, or maybe it's not modeled for us as we're growing up. But there's lots of opportunities now, especially in our time. They can watch a show like ours, or watch any of these other great minds speak to this. But you gave them a tactical piece there. It's like, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel that tug. Be like, is that a tug you want to feel all the time? Emotionally, is like, oh, yeah, that lights me up. Yeah, it's gonna be hard, but that still lights me up. Or that doesn't feel good at all. That's like your indicator to go, oh, what's is it the answers? Is it the question? What's get curious, right? That's your opportunity to get curious when you feel what is happening below your neck. Because this things creates answers and
Yeah.
creates solutions and possibilities. I think what's below our neck is like what's our compass.
Absolutely. You hear it's all over movies and media and whatever else, but you've seen a movie or a somebody referred to. I just it's in my gut. I had a feeling in my
Yeah.
gut. That, don't ignore that shit.
Yeah.
I ignored that for a long time, and it didn't get me to where I wanted to be. It didn't get me the answers I was looking for. Um, it got me to places where, don't get me wrong, I learned some amazing skills throughout the years, but learning to listen to that feeling is probably one of the greatest skills that I've ever been
Right.
exposed to.
From
And
doing that, it sounds like that takes you on that journey from what am I doing to who am I being.
absolutely, yeah, that's a fantastic way to put it, Gene. Is you get away from this, your job or your vocation or whatever it is being your personality, and really turning it around to who do I want to be, and how can I create the person that I want to be, right? None of these great individuals, whether it's sport or business, they they weren't born like that. They have spent a significant amount of time building that person to be who we see.
Yeah.
And it's rarely luck. Yeah, there's some skill in there, but a lot of this stuff is teachable. You just have to be coachable,
Oh,
and
that's
look for
yes.
the right answers and ask the right questions.
Yeah. Be open to the feedback.
Yeah.
There's a question that my friend Licky uses quite a lot in his practice and his talks. Is like, turn to the person beside you, or turn to your group, turn to your family, turn to your wife, whoever it is you need to ask, and ask, how am I showing up? And then be ready for all the answers, because even though it's the external perception, they're going to see you in ways and see your blind spots in ways that you just don't know. And maybe there's been an opportunity to reconnect to that who do you want to be question. Because I think so many of us have gotten lost in the early days of our lives going, what do I do represents who I am. Where it's the opposite. Who you are influences what you do.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look back on it, when you were in even junior high or elementary school, what was the question that every adult, always asked you? What do you want to
What do
be
you
when
want
you
to
grow up?
do?
No,
Yeah.
they ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? Not who do you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
And I think had our generation been asked, who do you want to be when we grow up? When you grow up, it would have been a whole different ballgame for a
Yeah.
lot of us. And now we're coming to it later in life, which is fantastic because we bring a lot more life experience and discernment to who do we want to be. But I honestly believe that when you're 5, 10, 15 years old, you probably have a better idea of who you actually want to be when you grow up than you do when you're 40.
Yeah. I would
And the
agree.
reason being is you don't have all that stuff that was jammed into your head and all these other experiences that you've gone through to, jade your perception of who you want to be, because then now you're starting to fight with the who should I be.
Oof. That word in itself is such a dangerous word. The shoulds is like, you don't want to should yourself. Like, oh no,
No,
like,
no.
right, like that, and it comes back to your power of words. It's like, who should I be? Be like, oh, who do you want? Like, who do you think should be watching you right now? Being this should, and I find hearing that, that's weird. Like it hits in the spot for myself when you say, who should I be? Is like, oh, like I feel like judgy, be like, oh, I got to go please somebody else, and then that's me being that who I should be, is like making other people happy. Be like, they say on the airplane, put your mask on first for a reason.
Can't help anybody else if you're dead.
No, right? And it's like, what are you like? What is this place of striving taking you? How is it serving you so you can fill and serve other people? Like, you do have to take care of yourself and you do have to be conscious of it, because I've found in my own life when I was unconscious of who I was being, I left like a wake of disaster behind me. Yes, there was successes and learning, but like I never understood what the power of that wake in my blind spots was when I wasn't aware of who I was being.
All right. And I love that exercise that you're talking about. Just a simple question to somebody that you're close to,
Yeah.
and having them explain it from an external standpoint. And it's not to get their opinion, right? It's for them to truly highlight if there's any behaviors that are incongruent with the person that they know you to be.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got a close friend or a partner or a spouse that you've been with for a long time. They know who the best version of you is. They've seen it at some point or another.
Yeah.
And if you ask them candidly, I would absolutely hope that they're going to give you the dirt, right? Like, yeah, this last week you showed up, you're being an asshole. You know why
Mm-hmm.
you're being an asshole? Because you're not paying attention to that little voice inside that actually guides you in the right direction. So get out of here, get into here, and move forward, right? And you get that little kick in the ass.
Yeah.
And it's always good to have those people in your life that are they're not going to give you the bullshit. And if you got people floating around that are always going to feed you bullshit, then there's one thing that I learned, you know, when I first started going down this road is don't be afraid to lose people from your life,
Mm.
because those people that are falling off or questioning your choices or whatever else. I mean, sometimes you want people to question your choices. Don't get me wrong. If you're going down a bad road, uh, but if people are questioning your choices based on their own fear,
Yeah.
you want to be aware of that too, because that's the type of love that will drag you down,
Yeah.
and it will dim your light.
Oh. Intention is important, right? Like when it's coming from that place, is the feedback coming from a place of love? Yes, no. Can you take that as data and not as a judgment against yourself, and go, what's the 10% truth here? Because almost everything has like a smidge of truth snuck into it. Be like, well, what is the truth here? Can I take that? And then what do I need to learn to be right with that truth as well? Because even if it's the truth, it might not sit in a great place if someone's like, you're being a real big asshole lately. Here's what I'm seeing from you. And you're like, well, I want to be caring, kind, compassionate, and up from a place of integrity. And somebody just shared experiencing me from is not hitting any of those marks. Be like, time to do a real recheck on
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. And you need that every now and then. I mean, we can't all be on our game 100% of the time. That's almost inhuman. I don't know anybody that could be on top of it every day, day in, day out, without some level of burnout. I mean, we all go through our ups and downs, and it's a matter of managing it to the point where those peaks and valleys aren't as drastic anymore.
Right.
Right.
From that, hearing that, Josh, what has changed now for you with and I'll use the metaphor of putting the foot on the gas, is like, what's it like now to drive your own life?
Um, Choosing my language here. It's empowering.
Mm,
Um, you know, really having a clear understanding of the fact that I'm in absolute control. Right. Sometimes it can be a little unnerving. Right. And that's when I try to rely on my support system,
mm,
and that is, people in my life that maybe I don't see or talk to every single day. People that maybe I run into once or twice a month, that we catch up with on a weekly basis. But there's certain individuals that I know I can rely on if things are going really well, and certain individuals that I know I can rely on if things are going really badly.
mm,
And when things are going really good, I have tendency to rely on the same people that are there for me when things are really bad. Because if you're only there to support when things are good, then there's a little bit of false connection there, I think.
mm.
So you know, yeah, just knowing that there's a support system, and then that people that really care for you are going to be there to help you regardless of what it is. Um, those are the ones that see you for who you see yourself to be. And I think that's really a big thing for me in having the full control is being able to pick and choose who those people are, and really having a clear understanding of where they fall into. Um,
Right.
right. But it, when I was younger, it was always a case of, oh, I've known you for so long, you must be a good friend.
Right.
But you get a little bit older and you realize old friends aren't necessarily good friends,
Right.
and
Time
good
isn't the
friends aren't necessarily old.
right. What I'm hearing here is like, when you're finding those people that you want to hold, that you're going to learn to trust, to hold that mirror for that reflection of yourself and be there as your support, is like, there's no time limit on that. You could have known them for 40 years, or you could have known them for a month, and your heart is, if you're listening to your heart, to where those emotional tugs are going, you're
Mm.
going to know the right people that get to be part of that close inner circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that inner circle is is key to your development, is key to your success. And choose those people wisely. I had a coach a couple of years back tell me, um, think of your life as a theater, right? And some people are allowed in the front row, and some people need to be in the back row.
Mm.
And sometimes you have to rejig who's sitting where.
Yeah.
And so, when I say you need to, don't be afraid to lose people from your life. You don't have to get rid of people, like you or lose touch, or completely just ghost them because they don't fit the narrative of where you're going and what your goals are right now. Maybe they just need to take a seat in the back row for a little while, and maybe they'll come back around to the front row later on in life. Maybe you'll reconnect, maybe you don't, but maybe you just don't spend as much time with them as
Right.
you had in the past. And I thought that was a really good way of putting it, so that, because I think people are inherently afraid of losing connection with others, especially when it comes to family members. So that may just be a good way for people to be able to understand that you don't have to get rid of everybody, but just pick and choose who's in your front row,
Right.
because they're the
I
ones that are
love that.
cheering for you the loudest.
Yes, and they're going to give you the honesty when you need it.
Yeah.
I love that. What a great way to, as I look up, realizing we've blown past the 40-minute mark like I predicted before we got started, but to end it with pick who's in your front row. Brilliant.
Oh,
Like, dude, goosebumps.
yeah. And that was a little nugget. And I've got to give her credit. A woman by the name of Siri Lindley, and she was a world champion triathlon, triathlete, sorry. And shortly after, when I was working with her, she had just gotten a clear bill of health after fighting an extremely rare form of cancer.
Hmm.
And so being able to work with her in that capacity with a very small group, and to take the learnings that she was able to teach us during her life as this world champion triathlete, and then her life experience of coming out of what should have been a terminal cancer diagnosis, was extremely enlightening. And that little nugget has always stuck with me as, yeah, pick your front row.
I love that. I love that. Well, before I let you go, there's two more things. Here's an
Okay.
opportunity. I want you to here's your plug opportunity. Tell us a little bit about the Recovery Spa. How do we get connected with it? And how are what services can people, well, how do we identify people that need to come check out the Recovery Spa here in Kelowna?
So yeah, the recovery spa, we focus on helping people manage pain, anxiety, and performance. So if you know anybody who's dealing with anything from a minor acute injury to long-term chronic pain, such as fibromyalgia, we've got technology that will help. If you know anybody that's dealing with anxiety or depression, or even just looking for some lifestyle support when it comes to living healthy and really balancing, everything. Lifestyle right now is crazy. We're all busy. We're all tugged in a million different ways, and so we pride ourselves on providing access to technology that will help support you, even once you've left the recovery spa. So, we're located in Pandosy Village here in Kelowna, and yeah, easiest way to find out more about the what we do, there's info on the website. We've got some exciting stuff coming up in March. We're actually going to be relaunching our membership programs. So keep an eye out for that. That's going to be a fantastic way for people to really get the continuity of attendance, I guess, and
Yeah.
treatment, so that we can absolutely get people the results that we know we can get. And on another note, we're also actually looking to add to our team. So, if you've watched this and anything that I said today has resonated, and you check out the recovery spa and you want to be a part of that, you can. There's a link on the website, and you can always reach out to hello@therecoveryspa.ca, and we'd be happy to chat if there's anybody out there who might be looking for an opportunity.
Thanks, man. Love that. Remember, show notes down below has the links to the site. Check them out, therecoveryspa.ca, and as well on Instagram. You can find Josh on LinkedIn at Josh Stilborn on LinkedIn for more information. So before we leave, we're going to ask one question, and we're going to try something new today. So the question is, what does it mean to trust yourself?
What does it mean to trust yourself? I think for me, the definition of trusting yourself is rooted in listening. Listening to the parts of yourself that you may not necessarily be in tune with, but that gut feeling and that heart, and just listening, because that's the physical response to you moving in the right direction. And when you're moving in the right direction, that's really all that matters. What matters in your heart. Listen to your heart, and you should be able to trust that 100% of the time, like without question. It's when you don't. You spend too much time up here, and that's going to keep you doubting all day long.
Thank you. That's a beautiful answer, brother, and for being the first person to try out the new question.
Hey, a lot of firsts over the last couple of years, so happy to be there.
All right, so thank you to everybody that's tuned into this episode 103 of the Conversations With. My name's Gene. My guest today was Josh, and I will see you next week. Thank you again, Josh, and we'll talk to everybody soon.
Thanks for having me, Gene.